This is like a seminar class. Welcome to St. John's. Glad to have you here. All right. Can you hear me all pretty well?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, please.
Yo, 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 what's up?
Better like this.
Is that a Rudy balloon?
It is.
That's amazing.
The artist, the balloon artist, is it better with the thing or no? Let's vote. With or without?
With.
With bunch of babies.
We love you too, fearless leader.
Fearless leader. Follow me once more into the breach.
Yeah, so the balloon artist who made Rudy doll there, we were talking and apparently he likes a challenge. And I said, well, can you do Mount Doom with Frodo and Sam on the side of it? And he's about finished with it and it looks awesome. It looks awesome. So the key is to take pictures with them because they're balloons and will pop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like building sandcastles. I see Wonder Woman back there. Who's excited to see the Wonder Woman? I am beside myself to see the Wonder Woman. I have waited for 40 years. And the whole time, all 40 years of life since I first saw that when I was 6 or whatever, I just couldn't wait to see how they do the plastic plane. Right? Like, you know how they're going to do a lot of the other stuff, the bracelets, and you know, the kind of, it's all about she's sexy but she's tough. And now they've created this whole mythology. Why couldn't I be in that? I want to be in that movie.
You would make
Anyhow,
an excellent Wonder Woman.
you think?
I think so.
Maybe not like right now, but at different phases, you know, we go up and down. Yeah. I was just telling somebody in the line that I was at CAA, which is one of the big 3 agencies. William Morris, you guys heard of William Morris?
Yeah.
William Morris, CAA, Creative Artists Agency, and ICM, International Creative Management. They're the big whales, you know, and all the. Now I'm at a mid-level agency, but back in the day I was at the big one, and my agent said to me, "We think we've got an offer for you to play Robin in Batman, the one with George Clooney." And then I get this call saying, "Listen, we've just signed Chris O'Donnell." And I'm like, no problem. There's enough work for everybody to go around. And then they're like, listen, Chris is gonna play Robin. And I'm like, oh, sucks. But then if you look at the costume he's wearing, it's just like this ripped, like, it's, how many packs is it if you have like the obliques and the thing, and it's a lot to live up to, really. You know, you gotta wear that all the time, because you take it off and it's like, oh.
You
Yeah,
got to avoid the bat nipples.
bat nipples.
You have to.
But you know do you guys know who my dad is?
Yes.
John Astin,
Yeah.
right? Gomez from the original Addams Family. During the 70s, something happened to all of the actors who were incredible. My mother, Patty Duke, very famous. They all started doing game shows. And they would kind of rotate through on
Tic-tac-toe.
what?
What was it? The tic-tac-toe, whatever that one was.
Like smartphone.
No, it was like tic-tac-toe or something.
Well, they did what?
Hollywood
Yeah,
Squares.
Hollywood Squares.
Hollywood
Yeah.
Squares.
Yeah, with what's his name? That guy, whatever his name was. But no, they would do, and then it was like The Love Boat
Yes.
and Fantasy Island. And every week you'd see some other great actor, like, oh, that guy was on Gunsmoke, you know, like. And my parents did all of the Tattletales was one of the video games. Password was the big one. $20,000 Pyramid. And my mom was kind of famous because she was on the $64,000 question in the 60s, and they gave her the answers. And so, and she's a good actress. She kind of pulled it off. But then the show came under scrutiny, and she actually had to testify before Congress because of the defrauding of the American people, of, you know, lying to them about the authenticity of these shows. And apparently my mom would tell the story about the congressman asked her a question, did they give you the answers? And she'd been coached to say no. And she says, and then the congressman put his glasses on and he said, now Anna, is that true? No. So she told the truth. And I was like, did you get in trouble? She said, nope, everything just kind of went in the right direction. But the idea that she would go from like an 8-year-old girl or whatever, 10-year-old girl cheating on national game shows to like a married woman in her late 20s, early 30s competing hard at $20,000 pyramid. I mean, she took the, you know, the responsibility of competing with somebody who could win actual money. Like, really. Did you ever see Friends?
Yeah.
It's a great episode of Joey, like, blowing it. This thing, I'm a ghost! He kept thinking a ghost for everything. Love Friends. Anyhow, the point is that my father, in addition to game shows and Fantasy Island and the Love Boat and other cool things, do you know where I'm going with it? He played the Riddler.
No.
He was the third out of 4 Riddlers, or the second out of 4. I think so. Frank Gorshin is the only one that I
I didn't
remember.
realize there was anyone other than your father.
No, there was. There was at least 3, but then I think somebody like, I don't know, terrible son. I should know that. Terrible television buff. I don't know. I'm like going to hell now. But no. So you were talking about the bat nipples. He wore the most ridiculous tights you have ever seen. And there are these like press stills from him with this large question mark shaped cane in these obscenely revealing tights. You know? Haha, riddle me this, Batman. I didn't get to call him and tell him I was playing Robin, but it's funny, you do these conventions and you get to meet all those people. You get to meet them. I've met them all, and they're hilarious, absolutely hilarious. So anyhow, all right, this is your time. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Anything. No, nothing is off limits.
I just want to let you know that you delivered a speech as a young man that has basically been my lifestyle since ever.
I'm just looking at you. I'm sizing you up and trying to guess your lifestyle.
Well, you think about the speech, and then you...
Well, no, I know. I've given a lot of speeches, so I'm
Yes,
just
but
trying
you,
to.
but you have one most famous speech. We're good.
Oh, I was thinking Encino Man. I was thinking Encino Man speech. Yes, it's our time down here. Don't you guys see? Don't you realize? Chester Copperpot, he was a pro. He never made it this far. Interestingly,
I live my life by
that, it's your time right now?
It's our time here.
I love it. A lot of politicians steal that, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Goonies never die, so.
Goonies never say die.
I should watch that again.
At some point. Hopefully later rather than sooner, but you know. We'll all start, you know. But anyhow, what was I going to say? Oh, I find it mildly interesting that there is a photograph that people bring up to me to sign, and it may actually be a photograph we have on the table. Do we have a photograph on the table of Mikey talking to them in that scene that he's describing where they're at the wishing well, and don't you get it? It's all over the minute you ride up Troy's bucket.
Is it with them in the huddle? I don't think.
No, the huddle's the map. They're in the basement. No, but anyhow, there's this picture, and I'm up on the rock, and I'm looking down at them, and I'm begging them not to give up on the quest and not to go up to the country club wishing well thing above. Well, Steven Spielberg's, it was his original story, and he was the executive producer. He didn't direct it. Richard Donner, who directed Superman, The Omen, Lady Hawk, all the Lethal Weapons, and the Goonies. Like, which one doesn't fit with the others? But so he was the director. But it was such a big production, and if there were reshoots or things that were going on, we'd be on different stages. But Steven would come in occasionally and make adjustments, or he would say, "Oh, I want to take this sequence," and he would do it. So he looked at that and he didn't like it. So he restaged it where I'm down in the water and I'm pleading up to them. So if you think the first time we did it, I'm like, "You guys, don't you see? Don't you realize?" And then Steven did it and it was like this, "You guys, don't you see?" Awesome, right? A little staging action there. So, but it's fun to autograph. They put, the PR department, Warner Brothers, put out the still of me in the standing up one looking down. So I'm autographing the wrong version, the version that no one's ever seen. What? Crazy.
And only you know.
Now, now you
now
know.
we know.
Until now.
Turn that thing off. Yeah, go.
Got a question. Lord of the Rings, to me, the books and everything. I met my wife because of the Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. What, 30 years ago?
Yeah.
What
You're the wife?
Yeah.
Yes.
She didn't age.
I'm a year older than you.
Really?
Yeah.
You looks like, yeah, I would, okay, never mind. Whatever. Let's be appropriate.
Plus,
Yes, go ahead. So 30 years ago, Lord of the Rings.
Goonies, Toy Soldiers, all that list, man. Come on, amazing. But anyway,
Sweet.
what went through your mind when you were told you're going to be Sam?
Yeah. Did you read the books?
Okay, I had never heard of the Lord of the Rings. This is gonna, I guess, like, diminish the value of a degree from UCLA, where I graduated with a double degree history and American literature and culture with honors.
Voted Book of the Century.
And they, yeah, eventually. So, you know, these lists, who put that list together? Can't wait to meet this guy Pulitzer. But my agent called, Nikki Mirish at William Morris. Then I was at William Morris. Darling, honey, she was like right out of Central Casting. You have to have a flawless British accent by Tuesday. Like, okay, I can do that. You know, like actors, you put stuff on your resume, like horseback riding and fencing, and they're like, great, they want you to fence. And you're like, tomorrow? I can learn fencing in a night. That's not a problem. I'll be a fencer. I can be anything you want me to be. So, what is it? She goes, Peter Jackson is doing the Lord of the Rings trilogy for New Line. And I heard Peter Jackson, who directed The Frighteners, and my dad played the judge in The Frighteners. Peter Jackson is doing blah, 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 trilogy, New Line. That's what I heard. And like, trilogy, I mean, if it's Peter Jackson, it's going to be a big movie. And if it's a trilogy, now you're in this epic whatever. But, and she said, you know the books, right? And I was like, The Phantom Toll Booth? No. She goes, it's the sequels to The Hobbit. I'm like, right, The Hobbit. My mom read to me all the time as a kid, but she read like Steinbeck, like The Pearl and stuff, like, you know, Of Mice and Men. I didn't get Bilbo and the dwarfs with the singing plates and all that stuff. I didn't get that. I was a totally dragons. I love dragons. Who knew anything about dragons? No dragons in Lord of the Rings. So, so I was like, okay, yeah, of course. So, it was one of those phones in the car. This was 1998, 1999, early 99. And so I'm driving and I hang up the phone like on the big brick thing you have to hang it up on. And I turned my car around, I went right to Barnes & Noble, and that's a bookstore. Now, for those of you kids that don't know what a bookstore is...
Hey, I like Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, me too. Thank God for Barnes & Noble. There should be more brick and mortar, you know, someplace you can go and read up with your computer.
Free Wi-Fi.
So, the Wi-Fi, exactly. Starbucks, Wi-Fi, and occasional book. But I went in there and I said to the guy, do you know Tolkien? And he looked at me like you're looking at me. He goes, Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien? I'm like, that's the guy. I was like, have you heard of it? And he just started walking. So I followed him down and he goes to the fantasy section. And he goes, this is all Tolkien. And I was like, the first thing, I kid you not, the first thing I did, I was like, what else am I missing? Like I literally looked, there's probably other movies to be made on these other shelves, like who knew? So I went through and I started shopping for which version of the Lord of the Rings I want, and I didn't like the John Howe illustrated versions, you know the ones, because he does action and they kind of look they look like a comic book. I mean, kind of a sophisticated comic, but still something you'd see like jutting out the cover of a comic book. And then Alan Lee's illustrations, which are, Alan Lee is he's the Tolkien illustrator, like the one guy whose entire life, and the Tolkien estate, and it's incredible. Every image that you've seen illustrated, not everyone, but he is the like court composer for Tolkien, and he spends as much time on like the trees and the leaves and the rivers, you know, and it looks like history. It makes it look as real as, I mean, it's fantasy, but somehow like the depiction of the elves, they look like, I don't know, they look real. they look real. Everything looks real in it. Like you could just see it kind of come to life. And so I got that. I went back to my house and I read the first 150 pages. But I didn't enjoy it. I read it like, bum, 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 Gardner. Like, okay, Samwise Gamgee's Gardner. And I had just gotten my degree at UCLA, and one of the things you learn about when you study literature is like the importance of gardening. It's really, really kind of like the end state of any great journey is to return home, is to put your hands in the soil, it's to grow food and have family and like that. So I was like, I like the gardener thing. And the descriptions of, I didn't like all the fat stuff. Okay, fat hobbit, I get it. And then, and I didn't know how I felt about the hobbits bursting into tears all the time. They're always bursting into tears. They're very emotionally available. And, but they had sent through the audition scene. And the audition scene was Shelob. I can never tell which movie is which book is which. Probably the third one.
Yeah.
But it's right before the stairs. I think it's called, is it Shelob's Lair? Is that the title of the chapter?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, don't go where I can follow. He's not asleep, he's dead, right? And like, you read this dialogue and you think, yeah, Monkey could get this part. If you can just say the words, you can't mess up this dialogue. It's too perfect. And then I told my wife, I think on the way home, the phone from Barnes & Noble, that I had to have a British accent, that it was, you can't fake it, they're not gonna, I have to be able to do it. So by the time I got home, my wife had gone to the trades, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, whatever, and she'd flipped through and she found a dialect coach and she called him and hired him. Like, good wife, right? Yeah. So, and it was like, okay, tomorrow or whatever, you're gonna have a meeting with Howard or something. So I sat down with that guy, and it was like, I felt really comfortable, and he was like, you got this. He's like, you're gonna get this part. You're gonna get this part. So once I got to the place in the book that maybe the first audition scene was, I stopped reading. And then I just focused on the audition scene. Now, my dad had worked for Peter, and I knew that Peter and Fran, their partners, writing partners, producing partners, liked me. They liked me because, just come over just one seat. Thank you so much. I'm just looking at this pretty lady right now. All right, so, that's all right. So, it's intimate. It's just us. So,
Pure honesty is the best way to go.
So, they had seen Rudy. They had seen me in Rudy with my dad, and they called me with Michael J. Fox from their, like, garage screening room. Like years earlier, a couple years earlier, and were telling me how much they love my performance and all this stuff. So when I went into audition, I knew that it was like a friendly room. I knew they were in New Zealand and we were going to be put on tape, but I knew they were going to see this tape, and I knew that that when they pushed play, that they'd want to like whatever they saw. Which is a lot of times when you audition for stuff, it doesn't feel like that. You walk in and you almost feel like the default setting of the people who are casting is to like get people out of the way. Like, they'll know when they see what they want, but until then, like, okay, thank you, thanks very much, okay, thank you. Like, they're hardwired to excuse you from the room before you've even started. And that's where actors get nervous. Because like, you don't want to hear the gong. You don't want the hook to come out of the room and yank you out of the room, and that's exactly what it feels like happening. But I knew this one, and Victoria Burrows, the casting director, had cast my dad in Frighteners, and she cast my brother in some TV show. And when I saw her at like the Frighteners screening or somewhere else, she was always like, I gotta find something for you. I gotta find something for you. So like, all the signs were pointing in the yes direction, aside from the fact that I didn't know the books, but. So I went in there and I auditioned for it, nailed it. It's like impossible not to get it right. It's so good. And she gave me a big hug, and then she had to be professional too. She had other actors coming in, but like you could tell for the moments that I was with Victoria and the moments where I was doing that audition, she wanted me to win. she was rooting for me. And she was probably the same way with other actors that she brought in too. And it's really kind of painful to think of that, because you'd like to think that somebody's just on your team. But really what's at stake is like finding the most right performer to fit the most right part at that moment in time when that thing is being made. So I had to wait for a long time, and then I can't remember the order of operations exactly, but Peter and Fran were going to come to LA and they were going to meet a few people, and they wanted me to come in and read in person, which to me was like I got the part. And I remember going in there, again, wasn't really nervous. Maybe I was a little nervous, but like when the work started, when it was time to do it, I don't know, there was just a seriousness of purpose that clicked in. Like this is important. And if I'm doing a voiceover animated character, or if I'm doing a student film for some kid at SC, or if I'm doing whatever, to me, or if I'm playing with my kids, doing a little, iPhone video with a remote control helicopter in the living room, like I treat all of those things with almost equal seriousness. There really is, the only difference is like the quality of the cinematography or the nature of the way, like, I don't know, there's like a way you come at stuff, and like I'm all in every time. I can't halfway anything. And but this one in particular, you could tell that the idea, even though I didn't really understand Sauron and I didn't know all the kings and what the battles were, I didn't understand any of that stuff, but I knew what was at stake. And what was at stake is this idea of peace and preservation of the natural world, and that Sam was clearly an anchor for that. And so I just tried to own that, and that was it. I got the part, and it was pretty great. I was actually in my office. I had an office at that point, and I was in the office. I had an assistant, and Jeff Owens was his name, and he said, "Sean, I've got Mark Schwartz and Nikki Mirish on the phone for you. If there's bad news, only one agent calls you. The agent that drew the short straw in the staff meeting. Like, okay, you got to call and give them the bad. If two agents call, it means they want to be a part of the good news, and they want to be able to claim credit for it, at their lunches for the rest of their life." So I represent Sean Astin. Of course, we put him in Lord of the Rings, and the agents are hilarious. But anyway, Mark, who was a very loyal agent, and Nikki, who had made that original call, called, and I walked over, and I knew I had it because it was both agents. But I picked up the phone. I was standing up, and I went like this, and Mark started yelling, "You got it, you got it, you got it, you got it, you got it." And I went right down on my knee, put my head down, started crying and thanking God. Yeah.
And now
It was,
you're here.
and I heard, yeah. But we would have been here for Goonies anyway, but the point is... True, speak, preach. So, but like I knew that there was I think probably in my lifetime, besides being married and having 3 daughters, that's a communication that will endure for all time. And no matter how many franchises come and go, if it gets rebooted, I bet somebody will redo it, in the next 10 years, somebody will redo it. Well, whatever. But but my point is just nobody, it's so powerful. Howard Shore's music is so powerful. The performances, the cast, so powerful. That amazing marriage of miniatures and blue screen technology and Gollum, nothing like that had ever been done before. I mean, you had Roger Rabbit, and you had other things where they were trying to do interplay between animated and real life, but they literally pushed the technology, and so there was a moment in cinema history. It's only been around 120 years, movies really, and they're kind of benchmark moments. Color, sound. Certain when they realized that the camera didn't have to be static, when all of a sudden they started putting a dolly involved. They could do this all the time, up and down, left and right, but when the crane would come in, and all those classic shots of directors in the 1950s, in the Western with the crane coming down, or putting a camera on a car. Like there are just certain moments when technology just leapt forward and it changed storytelling. And Lord of the Rings came out and absolutely, without question, gave birth to thousands of things just like it. I mean, I don't know how far Harry Potter was in its trajectory of getting made as movies. It might have been happening roughly simultaneously, but it is so clear when you watch sequences, and they're using the same software, the actual, like the same computer software to create some of the effects that they're doing. Like the Balrog and then one of the monsters in Harry Potter, I was watching it and I was like, it's the Balrog. So, yeah, so I knew that I was in one of my favorite prayers is allow me to be an instrument of your will. Just love that prayer. The idea that, you know, and actors do that. Actors are vessels. I studied with Stella Adler for a little while, and she was very old, but she's still sharp as a tack. And she talked about how it's really the playwright, it's really the author that is driving it, and the ideas of the author. And she would look out at a group of 100, you know, actors sitting there just listening to every breath she would take and trying to, you know, learn from her. And she would say, there's a lot of actors in this room. She said, what we need in the American theater are more writers. You know, she was like, people have to have something to say. People need to be able to look at what's going on in the world and make it make sense for each other. You know, I can't imagine what she would be thinking in the Trump era. You know, and the need for people, like, his election has created the greatest flourishing of an industry since the internet. Satire. Political satire. It's like there's never been a greater moment. You know, maybe Hitler, but like too soon. You know, too soon. You know, so he's created this thing. But like, what we really need is to try and understand what ideas are driving that. I mean, the very nature of facts and truth are being pulled apart with taffy. Like, we really need writers to come in and do that. And the actor, your job is to communicate the ideas of the playwright as effectively as possible. And so for Lord of the Rings and for Tolkien, who was such an extraordinary, I'll tell you what I really loved. I read the books 3 times while we were filming, top to bottom. Finished it, started over. We had a lot of time to sit around on that movie, so I would read it and really studied it and loved it. But what I loved almost more than that, or what made me appreciate it more than the actual text itself, was the collection of letters that you can get, Tolkien's letters, where you get his kind of unvarnished attitude towards, say, Disney. Not a fan. Not a fan. I had this moment when they were opening downtown. You guys been to Disney out in West Coast? Yeah, there's downtown Disney. They have that at Disney World as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah. So this was in Anaheim, and Michael Eisner was there, and we were talking, and he's always a very like lovely guy and very open to be around. You know, this titan of industry, and we were there, and he said, you know, what was it like with the feet? You know, and I described the feet and the ears and the hair and how long it took. And I mean, I don't think he was putting on airs, or, you know, he didn't have to perform for anybody. He already had the keys to the kingdom, literally. And he said, he goes, I just don't think I could do it. And it was nice. It was nice to have the head of the studio, the guy who literally can breathe life into people's imagination and stuff. Sort of look at me and sort of like say I did something impressive that he maybe probably couldn't have done, and so I like that. And then he said, and then we shook hands or whatever, and then he turned to his son, I think Breck Eisner, I can't remember the name of his son, but his son was there, and I heard him say about the Lord of the Rings, should I have bought that? Awesome. Like Tolkien kind of going, oh, jeez, in his grave. And, you know, each movie made over $1 billion. So, like, you know what? Don't buy Lord of the Rings. Go buy all of Star Wars. You can run with that for a while, and Marvel, and I just saw Iger talking about those, like, there's a phrase that there's a word that I hate. Hate in the context that it's used. Actually, you can pair it with another word. Content. Oh, well, we're working with some content creators. It's like, what was Mozart? Sort of a note arranger? Like, content creator. It just sounds so kind of like antiseptic and horrible. Like, you're artists, you're creating, it's your imagination, you're telling stories.
Sadly, people don't hire artists, but they will hire content creators.
It's true.
Well, whoever they are, I hate them. And you can tell them I said so.
Amen to that.
I'd love to be hired as an artist, but you know.
Well, I don't mind being a professional.
Right.
You know, you have to show up on time, you have to know your craft, you got to deliver a product. Here's what's really hard is the marketplace it's brutal and it's not always right. You know, the marketplace doesn't select for the highest quality fare. And it's rough to know that. It's even rougher to do something and go like, what I did isn't as good as what that other guy did. It's brutal. It's brutal to think like, and you know, when it's art, you're not supposed to make comparisons, but it's important to be honest. In business, and you know, artists, some of the greats talk about the importance of truth. I think we're settling on a theme here, people. The truth. The truth is an idea. But anyhow, so it's a privilege to be an ambassador for some of those big ideas, and I took that role and continue to take that role very seriously. And I'll also do Adam Sandler movies where I, you know, put a banana in your ass. Yeah. Yes, you're right here.
I got two questions.
Yeah.
One, I've noticed that a lot of child actors, young actors, their careers at some points have stalled or have not flourished as much as yours has or Elijah Wood. And I'm just curious to know, what do you credit or what do you say you didn't do that you've been able to have a long, steady career as an actor? And my second question is about the Goonies, the octopus deleted scene. Whose idea was that, and was that Richard Donner's, was that Spielberg?
Well, it was in the original Chris Columbus script, The Octopus.
It was Chris Columbus.
Well, I don't know whose idea. I mean, it was in this.
It's in the script.
It was in the script. So I don't know, like, if they broke the story together and then he went and wrote the script based on their, you know, I mean, you can sit in a room with guys and you can put ideas down and then somebody's got to go.
It's so out of place for like the tone of the movie. This is like.
Well, there was cool stuff. You know the scene with the skull and it's the go to the bathroom scene? That scene was written where it was going to fill up with water. And we were all going to get stuck in there, and the water's getting taller and taller and taller, and like you can't breathe. And I can't remember. I think it was Brandt who goes down and realizes that there's a plug at the bottom, and we're trying. And then finally, somebody unplugs the thing, and the water all goes down, and we're fine. And it reveals the next, you know, path that we go on. There was like, that's out of a James Bond movie. Like, does that fit in the Goonies? I mean, there was tons of stuff like that they either ran out of money, or they just decided against it, or there wasn't enough time to do it, or whatever. The octopus just always sucked. It just did. I mean, and they brought it out. Actually, this happened with Shelob too. They brought the Shelob's belly out, like a practical belly, and you're like, yeah, no, that cannot be like that. You can't. No, come on. And they pushed the technology, and Shelob was completely computer generated, but in a way that was like just so awesome. But yeah, the octopus was terrible. The thing about it is, I think they were like smoking a lot of pot. So even though it was like a, I don't know, $50 million movie, a 20 million, 80 million, I don't even know what they charged for those movies back then.
Lunk is proof.
Say again?
Lunk is proof they were smoking.
Yeah. But there's like all these mistakes that they just kind of like, Like, there's one thing where Chunk is eating the ice cream, and you can hear Dick Donner, the director, laughing. Like that, like you just laughed. He's doing that laugh. There's like taken out of the soundtrack. What is that? At one point, I yell when I've got the like fire poker thing. I look at Josh Brolin, who plays the character Brand, and I go, Josh, something or other, right? Still in there, Josh.
To this day, that's
To this day, I really wanted to work my brother Mackenzie's name into the movie somehow. And so when the Fratellis shoot at us, the bullet goes off next to our head, and I go, "Holy Mackenzie!" They left that in there. There's like all this stuff that are flubs and blubs and like, you know, it's mess ups. Data saying, "Oh, the octopus was very scary." With no octopus in it. I think they were like, it's hilarious, leave that in there, who cares? Like, people want to know why there hasn't been a sequel made. It's because no one would let a big budget studio movie like go through now with that level of playfulness come inattentiveness. Like, you know, they were like making their own movie and it was a hoot. So that's the octopus question. And I don't think I've ever seen when they put it back in. I don't think I care to see it. Like I can die without seeing that
It's on the
sequence.
DVD.
Is it?
Yeah.
So what does it look like? It's stupid, right?
they actually remastered
You're all struggling, and then there's this giant octopus just like,
I think it was part stop motion and part practical. I think.
They redid it. They fixed it.
So we
Actually
can
fixed
agree
it.
They went
So
back
the
and
way-
fixed
So the
it.
way it would look if it was in the movie.
Oh.
But not the new.
So
But
like
still a
Han
fun-
walking over and Jar Jar Binks getting into the Millennium
But
Falcon
it's still- and it's
later when they
still-
added that in, and you're
and
like,
it's still-
it sucks. That's not how it's supposed to be.
And it's
So that's the answer to that. That's the answer to that one. The other question about child actors, you know, I look at child performers now, and I think they are so much more sophisticated than I ever was. I mean, their sense of character, their awareness about where they fit in the industry. You know, set parents used to be kind of a trope that, oh, so and so's a set mom, you know, and oh, the kid's great, but the mom's a pain in the neck. Now they're like way better managers than professionals, you know, professional agents and stuff. I got an email because we control a property. That's the other one, IP. No, it's a book. You have the intellectual property? No, I have a book. What do you want? So, but it was the girl's 10 years old and she's in some movie coming out right now, and they were like, we don't know if you're actually making this, but the part is right for her. And you're like, who would think like that far downstream and that out of the box and be that kind of proactive? And you know, I had an advantage because my parents were famous, but at a certain point, like they didn't know what they were doing. And I think my personal success in terms of an ability to endure was that it like wasn't the most important thing to me. I was doing, you know, Little League was really important. I was terrible, but it was important to me. Girls, very important, you know. And then when movies would come along, like I was very lucky with being able to get parts. But my strategy was, I'm gonna try not to take parts that are kind of different from who I am, age-wise. You see a lot of actors who will get a part playing younger than themselves in a high school movie, you know, a college-age person playing a young high schooler because they've got kind of a baby face and a higher pitched voice, and then they get identified as that and they're stuck. So I was just like, I'm gonna try and find movies, like if I read a script and I feel like I can do that, like I relate to that part based on who I am, then I'll get excited and try and get that part. And I think that worked for a long time, but I actually think now in my late 40s, I guess I'm mid-40s, 46 is mid-40s, I guess. In my mid-40s, I think I'm experiencing what a lot of the child actors you're describing experience when they turn 19, 20, 18, 19, 20, 21.
The rough
What-
spot.
Rough spot for a reason.
And your brother really had the rough. the rough spot.
Well, he was
Yeah.
alcoholic and a drug
Right,
addict,
so,
so
he,
that
it
was
a real rough spot.
he had psychological barrier to his own success, but he's since
Oh, he's
dealt with
doing-
it
yeah.
brilliantly. But and he's been very open about it, so I think he's fine with me talking about it. But the thing that's a challenge is when your identity gets kind of conflated with the characters. In a lot of ways, I've been able to play all different types of characters across the spectrum because people haven't really pinned me down. I'm always doing something a little bit different. I'm changing, I'm skinny, I'm fat, it's a horror film, it's a whatever. Like, I'm always doing something a little bit different.
You're a turtle.
I'm a turtle.
You're a turtle.
Come on! Stop talking to Starfight. But now, probably as a function of going to so many conventions, and just because certain things kind of harden over time. You know, you go to promote a movie and the DJs at the radio stations that they have you call to promote, they know you from those. They look up IMDb and there's like 90 things, and they're like, Goonies, Rudy, Lord of the Rings, and that's what they talk about. So you kind of get locked in. Your identity gets conflated with those things, and it is a little bit of a mental exercise not to kind of go into agreement with that. And I've noticed, I got Stranger Things, and
Are you changed?
yeah, second season, yeah. Yeah. It was so great. It was so great. And I auditioned like anybody off the street would audition, and they said that, well, it's such a great fit tie-in because of Goonies and stuff like that. But I really don't think that's what. I don't look anything like that. That's not my relationship to the story. I don't honestly think within the experience of the show that would actually be distracting. You have to be able to fit into the show. So, but I think I had reached a point when I was auditioning for that show where I was just at peace. When I went in, I wasn't trying to prove anything with the audition. I was just playing the scenes. And they said, you were fantastic in that scene, but there's another character that has more to do that we think was even more right. Would you do that audition? So I drove back in and did that audition and got the offer. And it was so awesome to walk into an environment where just to be back in the saddle again. Back in the saddle with people who were doing really high quality work, who had their self-expression validated by the universe, and so now they could really do what they wanted to do. And I got to be part of it, and I had something that I could contribute to it. So, anyhow, there's another question. Yeah, let's go behind here for a second. Yeah.
So how did you feel about the strain?
How did I feel about the strain? Guillermo del Toro. Pan's Labyrinth.
Beautiful moment.
So, wow. Connecting some of those ideas, the war and the chalk with the door and going into another portal, and the thing with the eyeball, who thinks of that? So, he invited me, he and Carlton Cuse, who was the producer of the Lost franchise, invited me to meet with them, and I came in and sat down, and it was very clear that they wanted to meet with me. And it's a decidedly different vibe when you go in to meet somebody and you want to be a part of something, and there's a weird, whether you mean for it to be like this or not, no matter how cool people are, they're kind of like power relationships. Trump is, I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about Trump, but you watch him shake hands?
Yeah.
He always pulls you in, such a dick move. You're oh, hi, yeah. The French guy got him back. Did you see that? White knuckled. Awesome. But you sit in these meetings and there is a little feeling of who wants to be here more and who wants something from the other person. And I sat down in the room and all of a sudden it was very clear that they wanted me. And, actors, 1 minute, you're at a con and you're the king of the world. The next minute you're scraping for breadcrumbs and you're you kind of, at any given moment you look around and you're oh, this is a power moment, I'm strong. Like, oh, this is a weak moment, I'm so sorry. You know, like, you never know what moment. And now here I am with these two heavy hitters, and like, I'm in the power seat. I'm like, yeah, no, it's great. And like, I'm terrible with certain, like, what you see is what you get. I don't play poker very well in those settings. And they're like, well, you know, blah, 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 what do you think? I'm like, I'm in. You said, like, you want me there, I'm there. Like, you know, probably not a great negotiating position to be in. Call your agents, like, well, we're gonna hold out for X amount of dollars. And I was like, yeah, but I already told them I'd do it for like whatever. I think we have to pay them, you know? But they said when we sat down, they're like, we love you. We want you to be a part of this world. We're so excited, like, who you are and everything you bring to the table, and we're gonna kill you in episode 8. And you're like, it's so great to be a part of it, but like, is there any chance I would live? Nope. Okay, yeah. So I lasted longer in the show than the character did in the book. So there's that, yeah.
Okay, how does it feel to work with the cast of TMNT?
It's over. Two.
Having a moment.
Having a moment, yeah. I mean, clearly this audience, like,
I love you.
Gets
Rap.
the-
Love you.
Thank you.
Rap. Awesome.
this guy came up to me in Detroit last week, and he was autistic, and kind of couldn't look at you a little bit, and kind of rocking back and forth, and talking about things, and had lots of questions about turtles, and was clearly, as a lot of autistic people are, like a savant when it came to turtles. He could tell you the title of any episode, of any of the iterations, any of the actors, any of the beats. He could tell you who, like, he knew, like, that was his thing. He knew every single thing about turtles. And I'm like, didn't know that much about turtles, didn't know. So, when I started, I mean, but he said, will you do your catchphrase for me, please? And I was like, absolutely. Which one? Which catchphrase? And he goes, well, the one you've been doing lately. Oh, sewer apples.
Yes.
My hook with it is, come on, stop talking and start fighting. It was very strange to sit next to Rob Paulson and play Raphael, because Rob was Raphael for 9 seasons or something. So you're like,
Was there any weird connection to the fact that Corey was also?
well, that came along a little bit, like, once we were into it, and that was awesome. I mean, Raphael is so great. The show is great.
Yes,
The
it
look is great. Like, everything about the fact that I get to be in it as one of the voices is, like, I'm so grateful for that. But just to be a part of something, like,
I love that.
I want to be respectful to every iteration and all the fans. Not because of my voice or even necessarily the other voices in the show, but it's the best one. I mean, it's like a movie. Every Saturday you're watching, I mean, what they do with Splinter and the emotions, and like, it gets the comedy and it gets all the, yeah, and I'm like, I watch it and I just go, what, you agree?
With Brent Splinter, please. Too soon.
All the feels. All the
All the
feels.
feels.
I cried.
Sorry, spoilers for episode.
But I wasn't even thinking the end. I was thinking like just,
With the
like all the way from the beginning, just like the mood. Like, what Saturday morning cartoon can give you like Pulp Fiction and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon? You know what I mean? And then boing, their eyes are crazy, and then Greg Sipes doing Michelangelo is just he's just so funny. You can't concentrate. He sits, his microphone's behind me, my microphone's here, and he does stuff, and you're like, there's just no way he just did that. It is so funny. It is so funny. But Raphael, like, he gets Spike. Oh my God, I see this stuff and I'm like, you're kidding, that's so great. And then Spike becomes Slash.
Yeah.
And they bring in Corey. And you're like, mic drop, it's awesome. And they put all kinds of crazy references to everybody's different movies everywhere, and like, easy to miss it. So I really wanted to go 7 episodes. Like, when we started in the first year, I'm like, I hope the show goes 7 seasons. And so at the end of 5, and they're going to reboot it like right away. They're already rebooting it. Yeah, it doesn't. It's all good.
Are you in?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna do another super crossover.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they will. I'm sure. I mean, that kind of. Yeah, that could happen. So they are incredible. Rob Paulson is one of he's a prince. He's just a prince of a human being. Every time he walks into the room, and he's funny, he's serious, he's had like issues in his life and things like this, but when he walks into the room, his professional kind of like foundation isn't this amazing? Isn't this so great we get to be a part of this? And you do anything. I mean, if you sign autographs for people telling you how great you are for 3 days, at a certain point your energy flags, and you're, God, I'm so tired. It's like having people tell you how great you are. You're tired, really? Like, people have to do to work in life, and like, you're tired right now. You're like, oh, okay, you're right. I shouldn't be, like, I can't afford to be tired, but I am tired. He just sets this tone for everyone about how lucky we are to be a part of something. So you never forget it. He's like the veteran on the team who just makes sure the team's always firing on all cylinders. Seth brings a level of like cultural awareness. I mean, there's so many things where he'll start to say something and I'm like, wait, can you say that again? I gotta take a note about that. What do I need to see? And like his mind is just so advanced on our kind of American cultural life. And as a businessman, he's just so clever, and with Robot Chicken, and which he let me be on once a couple years ago. I played Steve Jobs and somebody else. And I was like, do I sound like Steve Jobs? He's like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, okay, cool. So those are the main hobbits, and like everybody, Josh Peck is great, and all the women are great. Yeah, the women are fantastic, and then Raphael gets to fall in love with Mona Lisa. Like, are you kidding? It's so good. And not spoiling anything, but just as it comes down the pike, it is awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it.
Ciro, the creator of this iteration, has such a sense of like mythology and kind of movies, like cinema. And he takes the characters to a place and he just does this little device, and you're just like, you walk in and you almost can't work for a little bit. You're like, I can't believe I get to do this right now. I can't believe that I get to now like try and accomplish this particular thing that Raphael gets to do.
Choreography in that show is...
It's incredible, all the fight sequences and the cinematography, like the close-ups. Like, here's a close-up on a character who's gonna turn and give a look. It's a Saturday morning cartoon, and it's like, so anyhow, but I do a bunch of other voiceovers, like animation and animated stuff too, but yeah, go ahead.
So there's another movie that I watched over and over again, and not a lot of people remember it, Brat Patrol.
What?
Brat Patrol. Brat Patrol. I would say you're going deep into the catalog, but I don't even think it made a first print. Brat Patrol was a Disney Sunday night movie when they did that. Remember when they did Disney? And Eisner would stand with Mickey Mouse like in different places that were like connected to the story. So we were in front of the animation building with a Jeep, a military Jeep, and Mickey Mouse. I love Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is great. So it was set on a military base, and we were all brats, military army brats, and we were bored, and so we would ride our bikes all over the place, and we ended up coming across villainous people in the army depot or something like that, or like we foiled the crime with our. So it was a lot of people who were military brats would come up to me over the years with that video, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. This is like, and they're like, no, we traveled. I lived in Germany, I lived in Korea, and I lived all over the place, and we were at Camp Lejeune, and we were blah blah blah, and this show got us through. And you're like, wow, like the idea that those things like go somewhere and stay somewhere and last in some way. So I'm not sure what it says about you, but right on. Somebody, yeah.
You
talked about putting on the ears and the feet, and I would imagine those are the sort of things that help like bring you into character and ground you. So when you then have another character on set who's wearing just a Lycra bodysuit, how do you still sort of stay in the moment and in character when there's someone who's glaring,
Well, Andy Serkis, who was playing Gollum, was like just a force. His intensity was almost too much. Like you'd shake hands with him and he'd break your hand, And just out of he's like, "Hey mate, it's good to see you. Good to see you." Oh my God, I'm gonna die. So he could have been wearing a clown nose and had feathers coming out of him. It didn't matter when he looked you in the eye and you were having a fight with him. Like you're looking in it's about your eyes, and or if you're fighting and he's strong, then he steps off and we do it again. You can still feel his fingers in your chest, even though they're not there anymore. Like the echo of them is still there, and it's like kids, man. When you're creating something in your mind or your imagination with people. Honestly, you can be right here, right now. You can be in Lord of the Rings. You can be anywhere. If you're committed to it, you're committed to it. It's definitely true. I would say more than the feet and the ears and the hair was dirt. Like we really took great pride in getting the dirt right.
I always notice that when I watch those movies is that you're all barefooted. The hobbits are barefooted. They just walk on everything.
Flippin' Tolkien, man. What if he would have said and they're all wearing Nikes, woo, that would have been a lot easier. But we wanted to make sure, because a lot of time movie dirt is not that realistic. And I remember at a certain point looking at it and it wasn't right. And I didn't want to go over and do something that didn't look right. They have these little powder things, they kind of shake the powder on you and then I'm like, no, dirt. Get water and dirt, really scrape it. And they're like, oh, we won't be able to get that out. Exactly, And then you learn things when you're doing dirt on your face. If you squint your eyes and you put dirt on there and water, and then you open it up, you get those cracks in your thing. Like that, because you can feel it. You can feel it on the lips. The lips are great. You purse your lips a little bit, and they put this some kind of plastic, whatever it was. And it kind of burned a little. It was like alcohol or whatever. And then you let it dry for a minute and then you relax your lips and it'll crack. So your lips will get cracked. And you can feel that. When you say something, you can, the ears you forget about. The feet, you slip and toes are always getting ripped off. But anyhow, wait. Did somebody, I want to make sure I get everybody. Oh, yes, young lady.
Was it hard to leave that world behind?
No, I was done. I was done. I was mentally exhausted. I was mentally done. It was sad. It was sad, and having this incredible thing come to an end was emotional. I think I was in mourning for a long time after that. But I wasn't. Sam was always a part of me forever. You can never take Sam out of me, and so. But that. Checking the age. That backpack is not an ergonomic, REI backpack. Cinching it down every day. I mean, the chafing, the burning cuts that would get in there, and oh my God, it was, and no one understood. You were like, this is a cross. I'm bearing a cross. Nobody knows. Simon, the guy who had to cinch it down every time. Simon knew. We'd look at each other. He'd come up and he'd look at me and I'd look at him, and it was like, go on. And at the end of the day, you'd be like, look, it's still bleeding. Oh yeah, we gave at the office. So, but then we have to go back and do reshoots. Well, with a little bit of time under there, it was kind of amazing to get back in it. What was weird was I always tell the story about how I couldn't see the spider. One of the things I felt like I was an expert at, as good as anybody in the world, maybe the best in the world, in a pre-Trumpian era where that wasn't expected, whether it's true or not. And I think part of it came from watching Jurassic Park behind the scenes, and they would have the stick with the tennis ball, and they would be looking at the, running, and instead of seeing the herd of whatever, they would look at the tennis ball, and it always looked wrong to me. To me, it always looked like they were looking right behind it. Like they weren't actually looking the creatures in the eyes, or they weren't seeing the total creature, that they were focused on a point that was unnatural. And obviously it's good enough to be a $1 trillion movie and have rides, and it was great performances, Laura Dern, incredible, Sam Neill, incredible. But I always thought I could have done that a little bit better. And there we were on the set, and the cave troll, or the Balrog, or the Nazgul, or the whatever it was, it's all the same thing, right? It's a piece of tape somewhere, or it's a tennis ball. And I wouldn't look at the tape. If we were, if that thing is if that podium is like the cave troll, and they say the mic stand on the top, that's your eye line, I would not just focus right on that little thing. I would look and see the whole thing. I'd see a real Balrog there. And your eyes kind of come to life a little bit. You really feel like you're interacting with a thing if you're not a slave to the pinpoint. And I think, I had a positive effect on other people's, the way people did it. And then the movie is introduced to the world's press in the Cannes Film Festival, the preview in 2001, March, April, May 2001. And then it became galactic. It was just incredible. It was incredible. Every talk show, every magazine, Vanity Fair photo shoots, and Movie Line photo shoots, and talking to let's go on, the Tonight Show, it was just unbelievable. And the awards, it was just incredible. So, but then we had to go back down to New Zealand and get back into character after we'd been kind of outside of ourselves, talking, thinking objectively about, describing why you would do certain things. I actually think you should do a press conference for a show when you get cast in it, because you have to come up with answers for things that, normally you're oh my God, I wish I could go back and do Lord of the Rings all over again now that I understand what I was doing, or understand what I didn't get back then. But now we're back in New Zealand, and they want to do a hero shot of Sam, get away from him, you filth, or something like that, when he looks at Shelob. And he steps into the frame, and it's just one of those, and the camera comes up, and it's the Sigourney Weaver, aliens, get off him, you bitch, so whatever. And we did it, and I kind of sorry, we do it again. You as a professional, you're not supposed to break character. The director says stop. You don't cut. You don't say cut. But if you have a reporter, you can kind of sorry, can I go again? So but we're doing it, and Peter comes up, and he's I'm I can't see the spider. He's what do you mean? I'm I can't see the spider. My thing was I could see the cave troll, I could see the spider. I could have a whole fight scene with Shelob that we took 2 weeks to film, and wherever I was on the ground, or wherever I was getting slammed up against the wall, I could always look, and I knew right where she was. I could always see her. I could see her teeth, I could see her things clamping. I could see the fur on her, and if she stepped and I was getting out of the way, I could feel the weight of her foot. Now I couldn't see the spider. He's what do you mean? I'm so it was weird to have to shed all of the cultural kind of energy that was laid onto it, and try and just get back into the simplicity of it, and stuff like that. So that was weird. You had a lot. Why don't you get the last one? Are we? I feel like people are moving. Are we done? What's happening? One more question? Yeah.
In terms of schedule.
Yeah. You can have the last one, but go ahead.
No, I'm saying, in terms of schedule, I can... So my question would take you so long to answer that...
Oh, now I gotta hear that question. We give
You got a
this.
second career as a collector, and you've actually almost parlayed it into almost becoming a second career. I mean, it became a thing. Like, you're not just Sean Astin actor. You became Sean Astin, well-known collector. I just wanted some thoughts on just that becoming like an actual, not just you're a fan and you collect stuff, but it's part of what people know you for now. Even.
So, like,
I mean, enough that
offer
you're
to
on-
sell you something.
You know,
right?
that you were even on reality shows.
Well, I think there's a couple of things why I don't think I'm a real collector, but
But you were sold.
no, I'll tell you, I know what you're thinking of, and I'll speak at it. Joe Maddalena, who created Profiles in History, is the premier, not just collector, but he does a kind of a Sotheby's style auction every year. He has some of the coolest artifacts. He's got like James Dean's switchblade from Rebel Without a Cause, or Charlie Chaplin's bolo hat, or James Bond's Walther PPK, or he's got like, you know, a DeLorean, or he's got the packs from Ghostbusters, the whatever ion packs, whatever they're called. Like he had a show, and I went on his show, and because he had such cool stuff, I riffed back and forth with him. I must have come across at that moment like an expert, and I actually took phone calls and tried to participate in one of the auctions, and it's amazing to see what people value and like, yeah, that. But I brought some of my props. I brought the backpack from Lord of the Rings, and I brought my helmet from Rudy, the gold helmet, which was all busted up, and he offered to get it fixed up for me, and he put it in this case that he made, and then he wanted something from the Goonies, and I was like, do you know this story? No? So, I'll tell the hard part first, then the good part. I had the map. There were several maps, several hero maps, like 3 or 4 of them, but I had one of them, and I brought it home, and I kept it with me, and when I was 18, I went to London to shoot Memphis Belle, a World War II movie. And while I was there, my mom and stepdad sold like our house, our childhood house, that I'd lived in for 17 years. And the way my mom would roll, dumpster, like stuff under the dumpster. So I have, it never, like, she doesn't have possession of it. And I knew the guy who bought the house from her, and I went back and looked, and it wasn't in my like upstairs room, it wasn't in the attic, and it like, map in the attic. But like, I was pretty sure she threw it away in the dumpster, not getting, you know, it just looks like, you know, if you don't know what it is. So, but maybe she didn't, maybe it's somewhere else. We'll see if it emerges at some point. But I told that story on that show, and it was like, because people will probably pay $150,000 for it or more.
Probably more.
But a good thing to finish that on a good note. And then I want you to have your last question. My dad, I don't want to say my dad's a pack rat or a hoarder, but he doesn't get rid of stuff.
You're saying he's his most famous role almost in some ways.
Yeah, maybe. But his thing, like, he doesn't go out and acquire stuff just to kind of have a mess in the room. But if he's got papers, he's 87 now. If he's got papers out, don't touch it. Don't touch his papers. He knows where things are. He doesn't want to have to like go looking for it. And so, and he was always like, at our house that we grew up in, there were things like 1,500 scripts from all the different shows and auditions and everything else. And my mom was like, throw them out. And my dad was like, no. So he'd come over and he'd sit and like read through each and every one of them. She's like, we're trying to move out of here. So at one point, a couple years ago, he shows up at the house. He's like, oh, here's a mail bucket. Those mail like little box things, kind of plasticky, you know ones. And we always had them. There's always like detritus, just junk in them. And he's like, listen, you know, I didn't want to throw this stuff out. This was yours from when you lived. Like, I would live for him for a little period of time here and there, 20 years ago. And he was like, here you go. So we're going through it, and you're like, don't need that tissue paper. Oh, it's one, like, HO gauge train car. Like, cool, okay. And you go through stuff, and like I was going through everything. There's booklets, grades from school. Like, oh, I never knew what I did with my grades. Like, wow, I got a D in chemistry. That's awesome. And then I reached down and I felt it, and I knew exactly what it was. And I picked it up, and it was the skull and bones that they use to turn the thing, and it closes. That heavy piece. Everybody and the people all over the cons have them. And it was like, oh. So I took a picture of it and I put it on Facebook, and it got over 1 million impressions or whatever. I was like, damn, that's powerful. All right, so we were all kind of investing that sort of energy into the experience. And if you weren't fired up and like into it, you wouldn't last long. You'd get replaced. And nobody was irreplaceable, nobody. So, which is really kind of a good way to live, actually. You know, don't take anything for granted and always deliver what you're capable of. And so, but we did a thing where we drove from like the northern part of the South Island. Is it called Invercargill? I don't know, but we drove down to Queenstown. We had 2 shooting blocks, like 8 months or 9 months apart, in Queenstown, which is the coolest place in New Zealand, as far as I'm concerned, in the southern part of the South Island. And so there was like a whole bunch of vehicles, and we all got walkie-talkies. Now with cell phones, nobody gives a crap because everybody can do this all the time. But at that moment, in the year of our Lord, 1999, we drove across the country, or at least across half the country, following each other and talking on walkie-talkies like we were truckers or something. And like if we were gonna pull over, there's no plans. We were just going. So like, we're gonna go over to there's something Fox Glacier. We're gonna walk up to it. Hold on, blah, 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 and we'd all pull over like a biker gang. And then we go hiking to the top of this glacier. And we're like, you guys hungry? Yeah, let's go find food. You know, we find like a bed and breakfast. Like, you know, Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship descends on a bed and breakfast. And, you know, it was like that kind of thing was pretty cool. We flew in a DC-3 airplane in one of the most harrowing moments of my life. I flew with the Blue Angels, and that was nothing compared to this DC-3 flight. Wow. Pretty sure we were gonna die. And most of the people were just like, everybody had wine, and the wine was bouncing off the ceilings, and my daughter had her little mouse that she liked, and the mouse was bouncing off the ceiling, and there were, you know, or helicopters. We'd take helicopters to mountaintops. We just, you know, I think just the adventure of all of it. I'm sure there's any number of experiences you could say, but for me, just the totality of the experience.
Thank you.
Well, listen, everybody. This was a lovely, intimate gathering here at St. John's. I woke up this morning in San Antonio.
Yeah, I have a picture of one of my friends with you.
Really?
Yeah, one of my friends was there and took a picture.
Is she tired too?
He is, because he actually lives in Florida, so.
Well, San Antonio, Fridays in San Antonio, they were all drinking. I didn't go out there. I was like, Corey Feldman, who had his concert, like, I can't. She's like, we're gonna sing Good Enough, come on out. I'm like, bro, like, can't do it. I gotta get up in 4 hours to like, I'm going to Queens, man. I'm going to Queens. I did the New York Marathon, November 6th. And I gotta say, running, I think it was First Avenue. Is it First Avenue through Queens? No. What's the street? You come over from
New Yorkers don't know anything about New York.
Even people don't know about that.
It was, no, it's Staten Island. You start in Staten Island, you come over the Verrazano. But anyhow, I have done 13 marathons, and I gotta say, the New York Marathon, and a bunch of big city, LA 4 times, and Chicago, and did the Marine Corps in DC, and I was Orlando, and it's my daughter, she's like, Dad, come see me at NYU. Of all of the marathons I've done, I've never experienced the level of support from the community. You know, they're always great. They're always like awesome. Thousands of people come out. it was almost too much. Like usually in marathons, there'll be like a big crowd, and you're running, and you're like, right on, thank you so much, right? And then you turn the corner, and there's no crowd, and you're like, oh. There was no break in New York, all 5 boroughs, no break. 3-4 deep people cheering, the Hasidics, the Muslims, the things, hey, we're the Hispanic part of town, we're the Puerto Rican, like everywhere, cheering and cheering and cheering. By the time you got done, you were like, it's too much. So it's great to be back at the scene of the crime, even though it wasn't particularly here at St. John's. That's one of the things I was looking forward to doing, was coming back. Can you give me that little guy? Yeah. No, I'm gonna give it to this guy here. There you go.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Come on, let's take a selfie with it, because it'll pop and die, and then
It's gone.
it'll live forever when we take a
Selfie or do
picture.
you want a picture?
Picture. Go. We're gonna go inside, outside, inside, and outside. We're gonna get on the run, boys. Oh, you know what's always a crowd pleaser? Wait, hold on. Go ahead. We're good? Yeah. All right, I'm gonna read one thing. You're very welcome. I'm gonna read one thing, and then I'm gonna race out of here. You got that? It's gonna be worth it.
Do it, I believe in it.
Okay.
Are you sure you don't want this?
It's a balloon.
You can't take it home.
But it's Rudy.
It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end, because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come, and when the sun shines, it'll shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something. You guys know the next line? What are we holding on to, Sam? That there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for.
Thank you for coming out, guys. Sean will be at his table tomorrow doing autographs and photos, so check him out there. Have a good day.
Thank you.